I appreciate very much the opportunity to meet the same class year after year, once a year, except the faces I look at turn younger and younger, increasingly younger every year. But this is from my very self-centered point, which I have tried to avoid for my entire career. But obviously very difficult to avoid being self-centered. Looking at people who you don't know, strange faces, inevitably you would assume there is some resemblance, or just see people there, they're just different faces, but they are actually the same. I have to treat you as if you were the same, otherwise I could not go on. Even though when I was much younger, when I started class, not as a teacher but a student in my middle school, sometimes teachers would do a roll call and ask your name, and then interact with you somehow, in some way, to connect to your name, to explain the words in your name so that they connect. But we don't do that anymore. Not in the middle school. I don't think in the middle school we still have that habit of teachers asking students' name in order to connect to them somewhat differently depending on how your name appears, how your parents give the name to you. But for me, or for I think most people here in Taiwan now, professors don't do that anymore. So if you face a class like this, or even much larger classes, then you treat everyone as the same. That seems to be normal and typical, and I consider that's normal and typical. Although I gradually realized, after I run into critical theory, run into identity theory, run into feminism theory, then I begin to realize when I look at a crowd and assuming, because this is not a way to interact, assuming everyone is just the same. You're just different people. I can distinguish each of you separately, but I have to treat you indistinctly, because I don't know you. So you have to be the same. That's how I have not been able to avoid self-centrism, by facing you as a mass of points, meaningless points, but separate points. I maintain my claim of subjectivity. So I face a bunch of people. But this doesn't occur to me to be something dangerous or precarious at all, until very recently we ran into this news report of how in Minneapolis, United States, ICE officers, immigration and custom enforcement, ICE officers, killed two activists. Maybe the second one is not an activist. He's a nurse, but the first lady was an activist, trying to help immigrants when a great number of ICE officers poured into Minneapolis, trying to do some cleaning, some campaign. And certainly they depend on whatever statistics they have in hand. They know there are a lot of what they call illegal immigrants in Minneapolis. Many of them come from Somalia. And the two Somali care center allegedly attracting ICE officers to go to Minneapolis committed some kind of fraud, financial fraud. I don't know, maybe fabricating some kind of status to get welfare for their what do you call that, patient. But then these patients might be illegal, so illegal immigrants. So from statistics or they get it from AI, whatever, they realize there's a huge, they think there's a huge population of illegal immigrants. So they decide to do a cleanse. So they went in, and the first lady who was an activist trying to help out when ICE officers were on the street trying to arrest people and check and put them in custody and check their status, but they tried to arrest them. So the activist, the lady was trying to help, and then somehow that they just shot her when she tried to run away in a cart, clamped by ICE officers trying to hit the officers. But anyway, just a lady trying to ride her car away from the scene was shot to death. And then in 2 weeks, there's another man looking at perhaps another immigrant, legal or illegal, being pushed by the ICE officers, almost fell or already fell, and he was trying to help. At the point that he was trying to help, he was shot to death. And after he was shot to death, they still continued to shoot for another 5 shots in a row. So it was just 2 weeks apart from these two incidents. The first incident already arose a lot of attention, not just in the country, but worldwide. And obviously, the first incidents left no attention to the ICE officers that's still doing their job on the street. So this appeared to me as horrible incidents, and then I came up this idea of facing a crowd, facing a body of students as if they're all the same points came to my mind. Then I think that sometimes if the teacher has some psychological problem, the teacher would automatically think something happening in the audience. This must be an act targeting at him or her. So you're talking. So you don't like my talk. You don't like my talk, so you're doing your own thing. You look at the laptop. So you don't like my talk. You're checking on me on the laptop. I would think that, right? It's very, I think, natural for some teacher to think that way. If the teacher herself or himself was not very confident of his or her own teaching. So don't move your fingers, because I look at you as the same points should behave in the same way. But actually, I'm losing information on each of you. Because I'm losing information on each of you, I could not recognize your difference. If there is a difference, that's a threat. If I'm in a psychological state, such a pressure on me. If I'm not, I'm just by myself. I enjoy my talk. If you don't listen, then you're stupid. That's your own business. I don't care. I feel comfortable with myself. Then I probably wouldn't try to figure out what you guys are doing and looking at laptops. So I wouldn't feel that way. In other words, if somebody feels threatened by a huge crowd which is supposed to be same, or at least they just look the same, you have to look the same in order to reproduce my subjectivity as a person, right? Especially if I'm under some kind of pressure, enormous pressure sometimes, to figure out which of you is illegal immigrant. If I get information from AI, there are maybe 5% of population on the streets are illegal immigrants, then that was, my God, there must be a lot. So I have to arrest everyone in order to figure out. So the more you look normal, then the more suspicious you are. Because I don't have information on you. Right? So you could be a terrorist. So I have to protect myself. Right? Especially this instance is against a background of police killing minorities and someone killing police in New York, in Los Angeles. You have all kinds of assassination or killings going on between police and the population. So you have street level officials in a state of mind which resemble the state of mind of the dictators. Right? The dictators doesn't know what people think. Right? People dare not tell the dictator what they think because it could agitate or anger the dictator. So they'll get punished. So everybody would hide what they think about the dictator or whatever he or she is doing. Then dictators doesn't have information. They lose information. So they suffer paranoia. So you have to look the same. But because you look the same, you must be hiding your difference. So this is the irony. You have to look the same to reproduce the power of the dictator. But you must be different because the dictator consciously knows that he has lost information on you. So he must try to figure out how different you are. So everyone can be a threat. If everyone can be a threat, then you cannot be too normal. If you're too normal, then you are very suspicious. You must dress yourself as a normal, respectable gentleman or lady. Then you are suspicious. So if a street level officials suffer paranoia as a dictator will always suffer, that means the entire regime suffers paranoia. And paranoia is very easy to spread. It's very contagious. It's contagious through narratives. Narratives is very easy to spread paranoia. Right? The narratives give you a story. Narratives carry emotion. And narratives also spread terror, sense of terror. So it's very, very easily contagious if the top leader suffer paranoia as a dictator, is completely self-centered and looking at the national, the world as the same. So that starts to get me to think, why, or is that natural for all of us to look at a crowd? When we look at a crowd, a mass of strangers, we have to assume they are the same in order to interact. Do I have to interact with a crowd, a mass of strangers, in ways that I can feel my own existence as integral, as an integral self? I began to question this. Is that necessary? Is this absolutely necessary? And that's how I started recollecting my childhood memory. And my teacher did the roll call in the first class, trying to connect to us in a different way. Even sometimes asking our family background, which sounds very nice from a legal point of view, right? It's private. You're not supposed to expose a kid's family background to make him or her feel either different or discriminated or uneasy about him or herself, right? You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to treat everyone the same. Just like a liberal treats everyone the same. Right? A liberal treats everyone the same because a liberal considers himself or herself as created by God equal. Everyone is created equal by God. So you cannot treat people differently. It doesn't matter how you think. internally, but you cannot treat everyone differently. So this is something that gets me to think whether or not my estimate of looking at a crowd, a mass of strangers, is absolutely comes from first my liberal education, and then in some deeper sense, the Christianity behind the liberal education, which I had no chance to think about when I received this liberal pedagogy for my past 50 years. I'm learning liberalism. I'm not learning Christianity at all. I wouldn't think of liberalism is embedded in some kind of Christianity, which normatively already it's not brainwashing. Brainwash is a bad term for liberals. Not just kind of indoctrinate everyone into believing we're all equal. We are individuals. We are created by God. And this, of course, was not natural from historical point of view, right? Where everyone was created by God as equal. That comes after religious revolution, religious war. Right? We have 30 years, hundreds of years of religious war. Then we have Westphalian treaty system. So we have a Westphalian system. And after that, and people are allowed, well, they were not really allowed, but that they started some kind of a religious war in each kingdom, right? You watch a lot of movie about how, like, in Great Britain, they subscribe to, they kick away the City of Gods, the Catholic churches. And then they have to deal with the Catholic disciples of believers in their own kingdom, and they start fighting each other. You have all kinds of bloody internal civil war, and that creates hubs, right? If you study history of Western political thought, you know hubs come from English civil war. So all this was not just natural. When we all become equal, created by God as equal, that wasn't natural in history. It was the result of religious war, and not just religious war. You have Renaissance, which is full of a humanitarian spirit, humanist epistemology, which is somewhat different from scholastics or Emeritus. So you have different epistemological traditions. And then you have science coming up as one of them. Science used to be one of the plural way of looking at the world, right? But then science eventually dominated. Science began as something I guess oppose authority, right? Oppose orthodox, oppose Bibles. It's not, if you have science, in the beginning you have science in Bibles. But then as history develops, you begin to realize that the science and Bible, science and church, state and church, they appear to fight each other. They only fight each other in the Western or Christian teapot. This fight, doesn't matter how fierce it was, never happened in the rest of the world. So for me, I didn't understand this past history. I didn't understand the battles between church and state, or the science and the church. I didn't understand. For me, they all came together at the same time to the world of my ancestors. They all came at the same time. So they came as a science, they came as gunboat, they came as missionary. They all came as a, and they came as science. So science, gunboat, colonialism, imperialism, they all, for us, in this part of the world, they're all the same. But they were not the same in the beginning. Right? Science came up in that part of history as something to move away from authority, to emancipate people from traditional religious authority. So you have something objective, but that's from religious point of view, that's really, if not threatening, at least bizarre, because everything is supposed to create by God. What do you mean by looking at the world as its objective? So you have this crushing anxiety, and you don't know what really who you are and how you understand yourself until Descartes had geometry. Geometry gave you, that's where the title comes from. I don't know how far that takes me or you, but that's where geometry comes from. You have geometry, so you have Newton's first law, you have Descartes' objective world that ensured human being created all equal by God as subjective. Because you have an objective defined by geometry, by mathematics, especially Euclidean geometry, which is two-dimensional. And that connects to my beginning self-reflection about every one of you being the same points. On Euclidean space, every point is the same. They are supposed to be distinguishable points, but they are not supposed to be different points. They're supposed to be indistinct. So you can move factors, triangles, points, as you wish. So they're all the same. And then that's where I think my abstinence of treating a crowd the same come from deep, but I could not reflect upon that because that was much deeper than, Christianity is much deeper than geometry. Euclid, of course, was not Protestant, but then, but geometry became big after scientific revolution and was actually constituted by geometry. And geometry allows, or even I should say enables colonialism. As colonialism eventually turned out to be dividing the world as they wish. They draw the lines on the map so they can move land, and they fight each other to get colonies, and they divide colonies, and they fight each other, they fight each other again, and they start an alliance in order to recover from the past loss. And then if you triumph in one war, then you have to keep watching the defeated, right? So alliance becomes natural for all the colonizer states. And all colonizer states were able to expand looking at the world as just the same points. I think they got their abstinence from scientific revolution, especially Euclidean geometry. So you could divide the world the way you want it, as the world is the objective existence that reflect your subjective consciousness. Without this objective world, you don't have your subjectivities. If you don't have your subjectivities, you could not be the person created equal by God. You're supposed to still subscribe to Catholic fathers and go to church every Sunday and ask for pardon, whatever terrible things you've done. You're supposed to still go through church in order to commune with God. Now you don't have to, because the God created you, so you have subjectivity. But you don't know what it is until you have the space in front of you, which you can look at, which you can manipulate, so you can define the world you want. So all the colonizer states, through colonialism, further develop their scientific studies. They study animals in tropics. They study plants in tropics. Right? You go to all those university, wonderful colonial university. The first thing you see is a botanical garden that contains plants or things from all over the world. That shows their great past as an empire or as a colony. So you have colonialism, you have scientism. Scientism is not just science. Scientism is about the belief in science. That belief allows you to trap all the other interpretive traditions or metaphorical traditions in the past, or even humanism, because they're not objectives. So that science becomes scientism. Science expands along with colonialism. So you have astrology becomes more and more complicated because you need to navigate on the ocean, and you have your boats built bigger and bigger, faster and faster, because you need to expand. You need to fight other colonizer states, either on the ocean or along the shore of colonies, either in Africa or in Latin America or in Asia. So science developed along with colonialism, and colonialism, of course, rely on science in order to succeed. I think that's very familiar history to a lot of people. But then what we don't know is that the upstream behind all this is this geometrical epistemology. That's just you look at the world, all the same. And this become a very strong impression when they reported how United States, or how White House, I should say, the White House launched the first attack on Iran, the decapitation attack, which wiped out, I don't know, a few dozens of top leaders, along with their families. And according to report, I don't know how to do that, but according to report, I think that's probably plausible to some extent, to a great extent, that they have relied on AI to collect information of all these leaders and their families, where they go from social media, those things, so they know where those people usually go. They collect all those places, and then they bomb all those places. So they make sure no one could escape, because they bomb all the places you can go. They collect all the information about where you lived, when you were alive, including your relatives. I think that's one of the reasons they bomb the girls' schools. There must be someone, maybe their daughters or maybe their teachers there, whatever. So they know there's someone being there. So they bomb the girls' school to make sure that no one escaped. So this is AI, but this AI is very different from Minneapolis. This decapitation campaign is very different from Minneapolis shooting, because Minneapolis shooting was not executed by AI. This much greater scale of killing, massacre, was primarily carried out by AI. So that looks rational, clean, effective. You don't feel the sense of 5 IC officials shooting a guy already dying on the street and continue to shoot. You don't feel that kind of cruelty. But it's much more cruel in terms of scale, right? But it's clean because of AI. So I began to talk to AI and ask different AI, how do you think? But they all come with the same answer. They use Euclidean geometry. This might be common sense for people who study this. For Lewis, oh my God, how could that be? I was like, why didn't you use Gaussian space? Why do you have to use Euclidean space? I think I got 2 or 3 AIs. If they're not laughing at me, but I think they're laughing. They were like that. We're not just Euclidean planet. We are thousands, millions of Euclidean planets. Very high dimensional Euclidean planet. So we could tell which point come closer with which other point by correlation. For AI, it's all correlation. They have millions of Euclidean planets working out. So you can imagine this planet cut this way and cut that way. And they could figure out which points come closer to which other points by correlations. That's where I got curious. So I started pushing them to talk about Gaussian plan. On Gaussian plan, you have, you can turn, you have shape, you have all this topography. Every point on the Gaussian plan. Don't ask me what it is. I wish I could draw it back, but I could not. On the Gaussian plan, every point is different from every other point because you connect with the point next to you in such a way that you have a local topography. But on the Euclidean plan, everything must be flattened in order to be calculated. So you have Euclidean plan being the base of calculation of all AI. That means Iran is just a point on the map, just like colonizers looking at the world and dividing. There's nothing big changed. And if you suddenly realize this realization that nothing has changed since colonial period, then you will see the connection or resemblance between colonial governance and global governance. Right? They teach you something, and they teach you how to extract resources from your own society. And they use your labor, and you reproduce your labor. You have to have health labors, and then you have the intellectually chosen one to study the colonizer state and come back. And then the colonizer state would have either volunteers or foundations go to the colonized society to set up civic groups. They will cause trouble if you stop extracting resources from your own society for them. And they can change you because you are authoritarian. You are not being democratic. But they wouldn't change you if you're being an efficient extractor, right? So they have civic group. If civic group doesn't work, something happened, there are chaos, and they said, if the police doesn't work, they bomb you. Right? That's what happened in the past 30 years, and which turned out to be what we call global governance today. But isn't that just the same of colonial governance? That's what they did during the colonial period for 200 years. So you have colonial governance continuing, simply change the name of it and calling it global governance today. But they're doing the things the same way. They're looking at the world in the same way. They're looking at Euclidean space as international. What is the international? Between state, right? What is between state? Colonies. That's where battles taking place. That's called international. That's where you have realism. That's how you want to appeal to hearts. Right? So if there's someone died internationally, it's anarchy. So you don't have to pay attention. If someone died inside, oh, that's a problem because inside, that's supposed to be constitutional. So that's lucky, right? If you have two different state of nature, one govern the liberal democratic society in terms of their internal system, and one govern their external world, which is international, which is actually colonies, which is a battlefield. And that's where you have realism. Then you have liberals and neoliberals and trying to say, well, we can't necessarily don't really have to fight. But they're still fighting, right? Until when? Until the end of the Cold War. The end of the Cold War, watching not just the collapse of the Soviet bloc, but also bloody civil war all over the world, all over the post-colonial world. These worlds were being frozen by the Cold War because they couldn't move. If they move, they become target of the two blocs. So they couldn't move. Once the Cold War was over, and then they look at each other and they say, why are we in the same state? So they start fighting each other, and they kill each other. And that's where Europe begins to feel that they are civilizationally so superior, far ahead of the rest of the world, because all the European states already accept rules. So they would not conquer, they would not resolve their difference through war anymore. They talk, they set the rules, and there's no more Cold Wars. They look at the world, no, you're not doing that. You're killing yourself. So you have this notion of a moral superpower emerging after the Cold War. And moral superpower is, never really succeed, but anyway, is the reification of the moral superpower. I think it's in EU's research project. We have EU's research projects, millions of dollars going out to study how the image of Europe has become or changed in the rest of the world. How do we teach the rest of the world to learn the self-restraining European states, which consider self-restraint as part of their identity? And they compare that with, I don't know, with African Union, with ASEAN, right? They always talk about ASEAN, right? ASEAN, no rules to preach, no values to preach. What are you guys doing there? Huh? They're asking the question. They don't know that ASEAN members do not assume their neighbors will expand, even with Vietnam. Right after Vietnam withdrew from Cambodia, this is a long history, some of you might know, some of you might not know. Right after Vietnam withdrew from Cambodia because the Soviets withdrew their support to Vietnam, this Southeast Asian neighbors almost immediately recognized Vietnam, established diplomatic relationship, and almost immediately afterwards, Vietnam became part of ASEAN, showing that neighbors of Vietnam never considered Vietnam as a naturally expansionist state, even though Vietnam invaded Cambodia and others. So this assumption about power always expands, and it's not in Southeast Asia, and not in Central Asia either. See, we have this 15 Republican nations, becoming nations after Soviet collapse. They fought each other. They have this border wars. They have, they have land. They have enclaves in each other. It's very easy to cause clashes, and a clash may took 50 lives, and you don't see that reported in any major news, as if nothing really significant happened. Nothing significant happened. And for the locals, for the local Central Asian nations, they look at each other, but they don't assume that you can expand. And in ASEAN especially, if you ask ASEAN, what are they doing there? At one time, I remember when I talked to a think tank associated with Defense Department, I'm supposed to add Uh, 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 I asked a think tank associated with Vietnam's defense ministry. I said, well, you guys seems to be doing very well between China and the United States. You're able to have good relation with both sides. Have you looked at Yugoslavia? Who has quite humanitarian relationship with both of you and the United States. But where was Yugoslavia now? Would Vietnam worry it become Yugoslavia eventually if China and the United States no longer fought each other? I was just joking at that time. And this guy was very serious. He said, no, that will never happen because we have ASEAN. He said, we have ASEAN. What does that mean? I think what it means is that Vietnam is assured that when something happens to Vietnam, its neighbors will not take advantage of Vietnam's problem and either invade Vietnam or take advantage of it. Just like the clashes between Thailand and Cambodia. No one else in the neighborhood takes sides. Well, they don't take sides, maybe that's for their own national interest. But no, not neither Thailand nor Cambodia trying to establish an alliance to fight the other side. So there was no such assumption about the other side must be doing something trying to get me. There's no such assumption. Because there's no such idea of anarchy. They are colonized state. They themselves. It's the substitute for anarchy. There's no anarchy between them. So it's not alliance, not balance of power between them. So they're not looking at international as Euclidean space. They're looking at themselves as part of a Gaussian space. So at certain points I ask AI, why don't you use Gaussian plans? The answer is very straightforward. We are using Euclidean plans now. We have not used Gaussian. That's the only thing. AI, if we're going to use Gaussian plan, that means we recognize curvature, which is nice, but all curvature must be flattened out to become Euclidean space before we can calculate their correlations. So we really have to flatten everything out. That means you really have to treat everyone the same. And that means that you have to lose information about the relationality of every specific point. They should not have special relationality. What if they have? You can wipe them out. If you wipe them out, you lose nothing because they're all the same, right? They're not supposed to be different. But in order to make them the same, you have to flatten them. So you artificially flatten everyone in the world as equal. Now I have the realization that being equal is being equally disposable. That's what I now understand, what really liberalism stands for. Liberalism is not about your rights. No one ever has rights in this world. No one has rights. Rights is a myth. It's a norm. If it's a norm, then it can be disregarded at the final point. If it's a norm, it can be disregarded. No one really has rights. There's no such entitlement. There's no such governance by consent. There's only governance by forced consent. So you have election, you give the voter the forced sense of their being in control. You give them the sense they can punish the incumbent who didn't do their job well. So you get rid of the incumbent, you have the opposition become a new incumbent. But the last party lost nothing. They keep their property, they keep their lives, they're still there after 4 years, 3 years, 5 years, they come back. or their daughters come back, their sons come back, I don't know, their brothers come back. It's the same bunch of people, transnational, control the electoral politics, and we here decide how they take turns. So we think we have rights, we can decide, but we decide nothing. And then when they decide, they can choose a part of us to wipe it out. Because we are Euclidean pawns. So we can easily be Minneapolised. Our bodies can be easily Minneapolised if they want. And the liberals. I'm not saying authoritarianism or totalitarianism is good, but at least under liberals, I know our lives are dangerous because we are Euclideanized. We are Minneapolised. And even AI is using, shockingly, Euclidean plans. So if you look at Minneapolis, you look at Iran, and then you look at yourself, you begin to wonder, why shouldn't I begin my interaction with you by asking who you are specifically? We always trying to feel comfortable with a crowd by establishing some kind of resemblance. So I look at these folks, I say, oh, I saw him, I saw familiar faces. So I don't feel completely strange. So I feel a little different. But if I go to Germany, if I go to Netherlands, I give a lecture to a class. They don't know me, I don't know them. So I talk the way I talk, as if I'm talking to myself. And then I always run into almost similar set of questions. Students will ask questions, how about Tibet? How about Xinjiang? I was like, yes, how about Tibet? How about Xinjiang? Tell me what happened to Xinjiang. I was like, do you know Xinjiang has changed because of your criticism, which is not established on real evidence? But thanks to your criticism, Xinjiang has changed a lot. That means people are very, the authority which controls Xinjiang is very attentive to how people see it in Xinjiang. Doesn't matter whether your criticism is fair or not fair to them. They change the way their governance in order to satisfy the outside world in such a way that they will not be criticized. So they're not treating Xinjiang as a Euclidean point. It's authoritarian. And the Xinjiang people have no rights, have no influence at all. But simply by staying there, being watched, being thematized, or imagined by an outside world, change their lives. I think that's very interesting. I'm not choosing one of them since I don't think that I get to choose. Either in free electoral politics or in an authoritarian state. I don't think I get to choose. But at least I understand what happened. I don't want to be cornered again by asking, which side are you on? Are you on the authoritarian side or are you on the liberal side? I was like, am I on the disposable side or I'm on a side that would determine the self-image of the authoritarian? I don't know which side I'll be on. Actually, I don't think I can choose. So I think maybe I stop here.